So we want to thank you for coming to our call this morning. Today we're going to talk more into sales. Last week we covered steps to master the art of sales, and the most important sales skills, which needs development. We went through a few of the processes, and we got to one of the skills, which was needs development, finding out the right questions, and then the type of questions to ask, which was open-end questions and closed questions and high-value questions. So today we're going to go a little bit deeper in to the open-end questions and talking about, one, the art of asking open-end questions, and then two, we're going to go into how to ask open-end questions. So doing a little research about the sales process. And I want to read this to you guys. Give me one second. So in sales, you should be listening to 80% of the time and talking 20%. If you're asking the right questions, you'll find out your prospect's real needs and find a way to sell your product and service as a solution. So as internet network marketers or internet marketers, our job is to find solutions to the problems. And we know the problems because we're asking the questions. And I gave my little notoriety to that link right there, Liberty 8 Your Choice. That biz is where I got that from, learning from my partner, Miss Pat. The art of asking open-end questions. And let me see. So you bring value to your prospects, client, and yourself through questions you ask, but only if they're good questions. Allow me to introduce you to a concept called high value questions. Simply stated, a high value question is one that creates a learning experience for either the questionnaire, the person being questioned, or your prospect or client, or both. Naturally, the best high value question provides insights to all parties' concerns. One characteristic of most high value questions is that they are open end instead of closed end. I subject I subject you I subject you to I'm sorry. I suspect you've heard this distinction before, and perhaps you're applying it already. Let's make sure you're using open-end questions to their full value. All right. How to ask open-ended questions. If at all in if I'm sorry, my cold is getting to me this morning. If at the end of the meeting I ask a prospect or client, did you find this meeting helpful? That's a closed-end question since they can only be answered yes or no. So if you only can get the response of yes or no, you automatically know that that's a closed-end question. And while it's good to know that they found the meeting helpful, unless they volunteer some elaboration to the answer, you don't know what ways they experience value. Maybe they just are being polite. See, there's no way for that person to go. They only can go one direction or two directions, which is that yes or no answer. They can't give you more so you can really elaborate on what they learned. On the other hand, I could ask, we've been through a bit of a process to get to this point. Have we not? Can you tell me the value you feel you've received by going through this entire process? So now it's really open. They can really express themselves and give you more information so you can really gather your information to give them a solution. Now what happens? Your prospect or client clearly articulates their perception of the process, which helps you to get even clearer on your value. In addition, asking your prospect and client about value actually helps them reinforce it in their own minds. The net result is you become more referable and earn the right to ask for the referral. See, I say that all the time in my process. I call it earn the right. Now you've earned the right to give the ask for the referral. And they give some examples here of open-end questions. I'm not going to go through all the examples right now. I'm just going to leave that open. But how to turn any question into an open-end question. So here's your action step for the next few days. Start to pay attention to the questions you are asking your prospect, clients, and everyone else you encounter. Did you just ask a closed-end question when an open-end question would have yielded more information for both parties? We appreciate start to turn some of your closed-end questions into open-end questions. Here's a quick little trick to discover that might help. If you find yourself asking closed-end questions, you can always open it up to at the end. For example, if you start asking, did you find value in this process? You can follow it up. If so, please tell me in what ways. There is so much to this topic that I couldn't possibly cover it in just one blog post. So you can expect me to revisit this concept in a future post. In my next article, I'm going to give some very specific high-value open-end questions that you can bring value to your prospect and your clients to yourself. So that was the little bit of research that I did on the art of asking open-end questions. And, I always say the art of sell is getting someone to do what they don't know they already want to do. And asking the right questions, you get to discover exactly what that person is interested in, even though they don't know, because through the art of asking the right questions and asking good questions. And when you're asking the open-end questions, you're allowed to get more information than normally that you would get in your normal discover type of process. And moving on to point number 2 I have for you guys today is how to ask the open-end questions. And this was taken from another source, which is wikihow.com, and how to ask open-end questions. Asking open-end questions is a basic way to gather information. But like everything else, there's a skill to it. Asking open-end questions is a friendly way to engage people in conversation. Knowing the difference between open-end and closed-end questions will help you tremendously in your career and social life. Now, like I said, if you're really thinking about it, the distinction between both is kind of hard sometimes but you want to know that the close-end completes, it ends. You can't really go any further than where you are with the closed-end questions. With the open-end question, it just really opens it up to give you more room for more discover and to find out more information. Part 1, understanding the open-end question. Know what an open-end question is. Before you can start effectively asking open-end questions, you need to know what it is. An open-end question is a question that requires a full answer understanding the subject, own knowledge, and feelings. These questions are objective, don't lead the person being asked and result in an answer with many words. Example, open-end questions are, what happened after I left? Why did Jim leave before Susan? Tell me about your day at work. What do you think about the new season on the TV show? 2, don't ask closed-end questions. A closed-end question is answered in short and single answered words. They are used to obtain facts and specific pieces of information. Example of closed-end questions. Now, like I said, in sales, you got to know when and when not to. Sometimes using a closed-end question can be what you're looking for. You might want just a specific answer from that person, but you want to be able to know when to and when not to. But this person, as they say, don't use ask closed-end questions. I beg to differ in a little bit, being a little bit more experienced in sales, you want to sometimes have those direct answers. And these are some examples that they give. Who will choose? What brand of car do you own? Did you speak to Bob? Did Susan leave with Jim? Did everyone finish all the cake? Closing questions brings conversations to an halt. They don't invite people to elaborate, talk about themselves, or give the questionnaire information about the questionee. 3. Recognize the characteristics of open-end questions. Sometimes people think they have asked open-end questions when they haven't. The successfully asked open-end question in conversation be knowledgeable of their characteristics. 1. They require persons to pause and think and reflect. Answers will not be facts, but personal feelings and opinions or ideas about subject. When using open-end questions, the control of the conversation switch over to the person being asked the question, which begins an exchange between you asking the close-end questions. This technique makes it feel more like an interview or interrogation than a conversation. And this is something what you really have to practice on as being a good question answer, is not to answer or ask the question so much to where it does sound like an interview, more of a natural conversation and not feeling like you're being interrogated. If a person feels like or get to the point that they're feeling like they're being interrogated, then they probably won't open up to you, and then they'll revert back to the closed-end questions as being more detailed, specific, and not saying much, not elaborating, and then now you're not getting the proper information that you want. You avoid questions that have the following characteristics. Answers provide facts. They are easy to answer, and answers are given quickly and require little to no thought. Questions that reflect these things are closed-ended. 4. Know the language of open-end questions. To make sure you actually ask open-end questions, you need to understand the language involved. Open-end questions begin in very specific ways. Open-end questions begin with the following words: why, how, what, describe, tell me about, or what do you think about? Although tell me about does not begin a question, the result is the same as asking an open-end question. Closed-end questions also have a specific language. If you want to avoid closed-end questions, don't start questions with the following verbs: are, was, did, will, don't, won't, didn't, aren't, would, if. Part 2, using open-end questions. So I know a lot of this sounds like repetitive, but it all makes sense as you start to get into your question asking and you start analyzing the types of questions that you're actually asking. Then all this will start to fall into place. A lot of times what we do is we absorb a lot of information and we don't actually practice what the information that we receive. So what I would do, I would start asking these types of questions, start focusing on, thinking if your questions are more open-end questions or they're more closed-end questions when you're talking to your people and you're actually trying to get a certain result out of the people that you're talking to. So you want to start using it and practicing a little bit more with these types of techniques. Then you'll see the value that we're trying to present. Hopefully we'll present some value for you today. Using open-end questions. Use open-end questions for meaningful answers. One of the main reasons to use open-end questions is to obtain deep, meaningful, thoughtful answers, asking questions in a way to invite people to open up because you are showing that you are interested in what they have to say. Once again, don't use closed-end questions when you want meaningful answers. These questions can bring the conversation to a screeching halt. One-word answers make it hard to build a kind of conversation and relationship. Closed-end questions are usually provided inadequate answers as well. Use open-end questions to explain the conversation after asking closed questions to gather the facts of one-word answers. Take the fact or one-word answer and build the entire conversation of the open-end question from there. Specify the boundaries. Open-end questions can be too open sometimes. Wording is very important when asking open-end questions, especially if you are looking for a certain type of answer. If you're trying to set a friend up on a date, you might ask them, what are you looking for in a person? They might answer with physical characteristics when you want them to talk about personality. Instead, ask a more specific question with parameters. What personality traits are you looking for in a person? You guys see how that fell in? He led him exactly to where he wanted him to go by asking the right question. Try funneling questions. For this method, start with narrow, then transition to broad and open. This method is good if you're trying to get specific details from someone. It also works if you're trying to get someone interested in a topic, trying to get someone to feel more confident. If you're struggling to get the person to open up with broad-end questions, try narrowing the questions first and then make them broader after getting them into the conversation. An example of this would be when talking to your kids, you might ask the question like, what happened at school today? Nothing is the response. Followed up with something like, what writing assessments are you working on? More than likely, this will spark a conversation. Follow-up. Use open-end questions as follow-ups for other questions. These follow-ups can be asked after open-end questions, after open or closed-end questions. Ask why and how to follow up and gain the lengthier answer after asking a closed-end question. When someone is finished talking, ask them an open-end question that refers to what they just said, or it is related to what they just said. This keeps the conversation flowing and in an open and engaging way. 5, connect with people. And this is the one that always hits home to me, the one that I pride myself the most with, and that is connecting with people. Open-end questions are one of the best ways to connect with people through conversation. Unlike closed-end questions, open-end questions engage deeper, more meaningful exchanges between two people. Open-end questions indicate the questioner is interested in listening to the questionee's response. Asking these questions to find out more about a person. Many times, open-end questions encourage people to talk about themselves. And that's the key, really, is getting them to talk about themselves. If you could get them to talk about themselves, you could just sit back and relax and enjoy the ride because they will do it no matter what. You don't have to prime them. After they get started, they will give you more than enough information. By asking the following questions, you can continue discovering things about the person. These questions can demonstrate care, compassion, concern for someone else. Open-end questions require more involved personal answers by asking, "How are you feeling?" or "Why are you crying?" You invite the person to share their feelings with you. Asking, "Are you okay?" just requires someone to answer yes or no. Ask open-end questions to generate conversation with quite nervous or new people. It could help them feel at ease and encourage them to open up. Use open-end questions to avoid pressure, tricking, influencing a person's response. Most open-end questions are natural questions. This way that closed-end questions are worded can cause a person to feel pressured to answer a certain way. For example, a leading question might be, "Don't you think the dress is cute?" While natural open questions would be, "How would you like the dress?" Tags such as, "Isn't it?" "Don't you?" or "Can't they?" can turn questions into leading questions, suggesting that the person you're talking to agrees with you. Don't use them with open-end questions. Be careful not to ask people questions that are too personal or require too much personal information. Gauge the questionee's comfort level when asking questions. If you are asking questions that are too personal, just ask another, less personal question. All right, 6. Ask that you have many responses. Ask questions that have many responses. Open-end questions are great for discussion. They encourage different answers, opinions, and solutions. They also encourage creative thinking and validate people's ideas. Open-end questions engage language skills and in sophisticated way. You can use open-end questions with children and new language learners to help them stimulate their thinking and improve their language. Ask questions that encourage people to talk. Conversation is an art many people have trouble with. Talking to new people can be scary, but open-end questions can help encourage others to talk. And number 7, I think that's one that a lot of people have problems with, is just talking to new people, finding stuff to talk about with new people, just opening it up into conversations with others. So, learning this type of skill with the open-end questions can help you improve your talks when you're talking to new people, especially helping people with language differences and language barriers, as they mentioned previously. Use probes. Number 8, use probes. Open-end questions can be probing questions. There are 2 different methods of asking probing questions. Probing for clarity. If you ask an open-end question that results in a general answer, ask another open-end question for clarity. For example, if you ask someone, why do you like living here? And she responds, because of scenery, you can ask an additional question for clarity, such as, which scenery? Probing for completeness. Once a complete, clear answer has been given to an open question, you can ask more questions to get additional information. Example of questions that probe for clarity are, what else do you like? What other reasons did you have? Don't use Is there anything else? This is a closed-end question that can result in simple no answers. 9, invite creativity. One of the results of open-end questions is creativity. Certain types of open-end questions require answers that encourage people to expand the limits of their thinking. Some open-end questions require prediction. Questions like, who will win the election? Or what effect would the candidate elections have on our state? Require people to come up with possible scenarios. These questions are sometimes make people consider consequences. By asking someone, what would happen if, or what would happen if you are inviting them to think about the cause and effect of a given scenario. Wow. 10, try to get them to ask you an open-end question. This makes conversations more even and helps you take part in the conversation in a way others than asking questions. To get someone to ask you a question, try not to give all the details of the story or opinions at once. Now that right there is hard to do for most marketers as well as myself. Make sure to listen. Number 11, make sure to listen. Asking the right question is pointless if you don't listen. Sometimes we are guilty of formulating the next question without paying attention and to answer without paying attention and to the answer to the first. You miss great opportunities for following up questions if you do this. Make an effort to listen to the answers you asked for. So there it is. Kind of rough, painstaking, made it through to the end. Open-end questions, asking the right questions, the art of open-end questions, and how to actually do it more efficiently. To that way, you're getting the information that you need from your prospect. Just remember that these skills don't pertain to certain one set part of sale or one type of product. This is the art of being an entrepreneur. You know that it's something that's needed in your business, even though you don't want to admit it, even though you know it might be something that you're not really great at. Sales is a very part of our everyday thing that we do as entrepreneurs. We find a way to get the information that we need to develop the right questions, to get the answers to the solution so we can provide the solution. So we're going to stop right here.